So when you start in my game, you begin at the end of the room. You've just woken up, having lost your memory, which I think in hindsight should have been made a lot clearer. Although, I mean, the fact that the player is given no context does probably help to contribute to that. So I was hoping that the fact that you begin looking at this wall will disorient you, because obviously the character is disorientated given that he's lost his memory. So then you have to readjust yourself by looking over behind you, at which point you see the full extent of the room. And the fact that the lighting is mostly at the other end, and also the large portrait will hopefully draw the player to the other side of the room, which, I mean, given the response in some of the playtests, I'm not sure if that was entirely conveyed very well. But yeah, hopefully, if I had done more playtests, perhaps I'd have gotten a better idea. Another complaint was that it wasn't immediately clear what you were supposed to interact with in this area, which I think my biggest mistake was probably making the phone red and the bag red. Although, like, they do stand out, but I think because the chairs and the books are also red, it's not very clear. Although, I mean, the fact that the chairs are red, you can actually push the chairs around and knock into them. So, in terms of the actual interactability, the phone you can pick up and carry, demonstrated here. You were supposed to be able to trigger dialogue when you interact with the phone, but I both didn't have time to implement that, and I found the actual process of implementing it to be quite daunting, even though I would have loved to have done the artwork for it. So unfortunately that was not added, but something I did manage to add, because it didn't take particularly long to do, was the bag. It displays the protagonist's party membership, which took me 6 hours to draw, even though the player will only see it for a few seconds probably. And obviously the portrait is supposed to imitate Stalin, but obviously isn't, given the fancier mustache. But it's to show the player that they are in a sort of USSR type area, alongside the sort of USSR flag reminiscent banners, but like not quite the USSR flag. So yeah. And as mentioned within my slides, the main inspiration for this was the film The Death of Stalin, which I have watched too many times. And the overall sort of concept of the puzzle is sort of based on the type of situations that might occur in a film such as that. And because the player has lost their memory, they obviously are in the middle of a plot line that is ongoing, but they don't remember where they are or what's going on. So in terms of the conversation that they would be having on the phone, there would be a character telling them that they need to pick up a letter that has been left in the room, which the player would then have to look for a clue. So I was thinking at this point, this upside down cup would be the sort of indicator, where they would then pick up this book, and inside would be a letter from the character Agapova, because obviously the phone lines would be bugged, so she can't tell you directly, which means that you have to pick up the letter from the book, which will then direct you to a place where another character has hidden documents. So the original thought was to have a loose tile in the floor, which I unfortunately couldn't get around to creating, where you would pick up a crowbar hidden behind the painting or one of the curtains and pry the floor open so that you could access the document. And the document was supposed to show the player that the General Secretary, who I've named Goncharov, is currently dying and that that's being hidden. So that sets up the idea that the protagonist not only has to pretend that he knows what's going on, but he now also has to contend with the fact that he knows a secret that he should not know. So yeah, that was my idea. That's my game. And those are the ideas that I hoped to implement but didn't quite get around to doing, but the concepts were there. And overall I would say that I think it worked out pretty well.